I am now turning every liability into an asset, every
Right. Yep.
depreciating asset into an appreciating asset. I'm going to give you an example, and I have a full 90 plus minute presentation on how this works.
Hi, this is Garrett Sutton, and you're listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons. If you're listening to our podcast, go leave us a 5-star review. All of our links can be found in the video description or show notes below. Hey, welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cavagioni, and today's guest is Brent Kessler. And Brent and I were just having a really awesome conversation before I hit this record button about real estate, about people that we know. Just really awesome stuff. So, Brent, I am super excited to have you on the show and to share your story. So, welcome and thanks for joining me.
Awesome, Mike. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited to share with your listeners.
Absolutely. Hey, so I want to kick this off the same way I start every podcast episode, and we want to know more about you. So, if you could share a little bit about yourself, tell us your story. Who is Brent Kessler?
Yeah, very good. Well, again, Mike, I'm actually just a chiropractor. I no longer practice chiropractic anymore. I had 5 clinics in the Kansas City area. I sold my last clinic in 2017. However, I have not practiced chiropractic since about 2008. I had associate docs in my clinic. I now live in Florida. I live in Port Orange, Florida, which is about an hour east of Orlando. It bumps up next to Daytona Beach. However, I'm coming to you this holiday weekend from my house in the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri, between St. Louis and Kansas City, up here with some of my family and friends. And we're spending the holiday weekend up here in the Ozarks. But yeah, so anyway, the thing I do now is I have a company called the Money Multiplier. And the thing I do, Mike, is I teach people how to build, keep, and create wealth through their own debts and expenses that they already have. I teach people how to recycle and recapture dollars so all that money stays in the family. And actually, back in 2006 is when I first learned about this concept that I teach. I was actually in an audience and I was at a chiropractic convention and I was sitting in the audience and I heard somebody talk about this thing, becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept. And I was like, wow, that is really, really good information, but there's got to be a catch. It's got to be too good to be true. There's no way that this can work this way, right? So I heard that information back in 06. And I went home after that conference and I did nothing with the information that I heard. And then I go back to another conference, another chiropractic conference almost 2 years later in early of 2008. And there was about 10 or 12 of my colleagues that were at the previous conference with me earlier, the one back in 06. And the only difference between them and me is when they heard this information, they acted upon the information that they heard. And they were just going on and on. They were ranting and raving. They were like, Brent, isn't this banking concept the most powerful thing ever to build, keep, create wealth? Okay, all with just adding one step in your financial life. Again, all right, so they were going over all this stuff. So I don't have to work any harder. I don't lose control of my money. I don't take any additional risk, right? I'm just adding one step in my financial life. So I thought to myself, there had to be something to this, right? There's no way that 10 or 12 of my colleagues were lying to me. Maybe 1 or 2, but not 10 or 12. So I came home and I told my wife, I said, honey, we have to start implementing this concept in our life. And it was at that time, Mike, it was in February of 2008. I was $984,711 in debt. That's what I owed to the third-party creditors. Now, I know what you're thinking, because at the time, okay, at that time I was living in Kansas, And you're thinking, oh my gosh, how does a guy from Kansas become almost $1 million of debt? I know, okay, now again, I know where you're at out in Hawaii, that buys a very small house, okay? Or if you're in California or somewhere like that, that buys a very small house. But in Kansas, it buys you a lot. How was I in that debt? I had the house that I lived in. I had my chiropractic student loans. I had my chiropractic clinic. At the time, I had 2 clinics. And then, of course, I have a house on the lake of the Ozarks. And if you have a house on the lake, the thing you have to have is a boat and a wave runner, right? I mean, there's no way you can have a house on the lake without a boat and a wave runner.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then I'm an airplane pilot. So as an airplane pilot, I had to have my own airplane. Yeah. So it didn't take me a lot to become almost $1 million in debt. Well, I was able to put this concept that I learned into place, and I was able to pay that debt off in 39 months, 3 years and 3 months. And I just added one step to my financial life. So I became really passionate about it. So I started teaching this concept in March of 2012. So here we are in July of 2024. So I'm 12 years and 4 months into this thing, right? And that's how long I've been teaching it. But I've been a customer since 2008. First heard about it in 06, which I didn't believe it for 2 years. And now the thing I do is I get the privilege of traveling around the country, and I teach this concept, whether it's 50 to 70 live events a year, 100 to 120 Zoom virtual podcast events a year. And now everything we do is just word of mouth referral. And yes, so the thing that I do is I help people to break the bonds of financial slavery they don't even realize they're in, and start taking control of their own wealth and their own money, all without taking any additional risk, changing your cash flow, losing control, or working any harder, just adding that one step in their financial life.
Yeah. I love it, Brent. As a matter of fact, I practice infinite banking myself. So that's awesome. And it's funny because as you're sharing your story and you're talking about when you first heard about it, I'm very surprised that the place you heard about this method in the first place was a chiropractor convention. I've gone to real estate conferences and people don't talk about this, right? A lot of people do now, but some of the ones that I've been to in the past, like, people don't talk about infinite banking. They talk about different strategies and different ways to invest in real estate. This is one of those methods that you can use to multiply your real estate like tenfold, right? Because of the options that you have and the liquidity that you build for yourself by becoming your own bank, right? So one of the things that we were talking about before I hit record, I was sharing with you, one of my focuses for this year was building on my liquidity, right? So
Yeah.
that's one way, and also doing velocity banking with my HELOC. So I tend to dip my hands into a lot of different things to just build my liquidity in general, right? To make sure that I'm going to have the funds that I need to have to invest in that good deal when it comes my way, right? I don't want to have to ask other people. Yeah, using other people's money to invest is great, but when you have the resource that you can kind of double dip into yourself, that's phenomenal. Again, really exciting to hear about how you heard about it. And actually, I'm curious. So when you first heard about this in 2006 and you were like, there's got to be a catch, there's something, right? And then
Too
2
good to be
years
true.
later, your buddies are at the other conference that are telling you about, oh yeah, what do you think about this? What was going through your head at that moment when they were like, hey, Brent, yeah, this is great. How's yours working out for you? And you wait, what?
Yeah, exactly right, Mike. That's exactly what they said. They were like, isn't this the most powerful thing ever? And I was like, guys, I didn't do it. I came home. As a matter of fact, at that conference, I bought this book, Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. Now, R. Nelson Nash was my mentor in this, and he still is. He just passed away. And again, all right, so R. Nelson Nash passed away in March of 2019 at age 87 years old. So a little over 5 years ago. This book, Mike, completely changed my financial life. This is a book that you want to add to your wealth building library. So all credit goes to Nelson Nash. He was my mentor and he taught me this concept. All right. So that is a book that everybody should have. And it is a little bit of an outside of the box concept because exactly what you said, people don't know about this. I teach on stage all around the country, and very seldom do I get somebody that says, oh, yeah, I've heard about that before? Or if they did hear about it, they're not doing it. Like you said, you have actually implemented this in your life, right? But most people, they just haven't even heard about it. They don't even know that it's possible to build, keep, and create this, to create wealth this way. And then two, a lot of the people that know it or have heard about it, they shy away from it because they're like, okay, the infinite banking concept. So I'm going to put money into a whole life policy and create and build wealth. That's crazy because Dave Ramsey told me it wouldn't work, so it's not going to work, right? So that's what people are programmed. They're programmed to listen to all this financial noise out there. Don't take my word for what I'm saying. And again, just being in the real estate world, I know we were talking a bit, just a bit offline about all the people that I know in the real estate world and clients of mine that are very well known in the real estate world. I use this concept in my life to fund my real estate deals. I have long-term rentals, I have short-term rentals, Airbnbs, VRBOs, and I have a big lending portfolio. As we talk here today, I have $10.3 million loaned out in deals that are as far as real estate deals. And I have, the loan, I have the note. I'm in first position in all of these deals or developments that I'm in, so, right? There's some that are individual homes. There's some that are real estate developments. And I'm in first position of all of that because, again, if I'm not first, I'm last. I have a t-shirt that says, if you're not first, you're last.
All right,
So I
Ricky
don't
Bobby.
take any second, right? So I don't take any second position deals.
Yeah.
But the thing that I do, Mike, is I take my money first and I put it into this concept. Now, I know a lot of the listeners are saying, what is the concept? The infinite banking concept, it's a concept, that you're going to use to build, keep, and create wealth through your own debts and expenses that you have. So the way it works is that you put your money into a whole life insurance policy. Now, when I say that, a lot of your listeners just tuned out. They just went and did someone else or right there said, whole life insurance. I don't need to know about that. Let me tell you, if you're not practicing this concept in your life, or if you think that you know everything there is to know about whole life insurance, you're wrong. Because if you understood this concept, you would be implementing it in your life. As a matter of fact, it's been around for over 250 years. I did not create the concept. The guy that wrote this book, R. Nelson Nash, didn't create the concept. It's been around for over 250 plus years. Go out and research people like the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Stanleys, the Barclays. Go look and see how Walt Disney built Disneyland, how Ray Kroc funded McDonald's, how Pampered Chef got started before Warren Buffett bought Pampered Chef. They are all using this concept in their life to keep control of that money and recycle and recapture it.
Absolutely. So Brent, it's funny, the first name that you mentioned was the Rockefellers, right? So I first heard about this concept when a buddy turned me on to a book called
What would the Rockefellers do?
Yep. And they were the ones that started explaining this to me. Like, oh yeah, I've got my life insurance policy and I'm funding it up, and then I can borrow from it to invest into whatever while it's still gaining interest. And then when I pay it back and I'm paying that loan back to myself, I'm paying that interest back to myself. So all I'm doing is recycling my money. I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And then I've had multiple people come on the show before too that share other methods and other ways of doing it. There's ways to do it with certain IUL policies. There's all different. I'm doing mine with the IUL policy, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be just whole life, right? So there are different methods as long as the policy is built correctly. So as long as you have the right person working on it, then you'll be able to build it to the point where you can use it to borrow from it, to use and become your own bank, right? So yeah, I absolutely love this method, Brent. There's a lot you can do with it. It doesn't have to be real estate. If you want to start a business, you need money to buy products and whatever it is, if you're producing sales, and you got to buy that back end, you have those funds to do that because you have funded it yourself and you've become your own bank. It takes time to build it up, but like you said, you've been doing this now since 2008. So you've been able to build and build and build upon that. Just think about that. If you get started today, where you could be 10 years from now, right? Especially if you're one of my younger listeners right now, listen to this show and
you just graduated college and you're trying to figure things out, man. And now is the time at that young age that you can get a really great policy because you're young and healthy and vibrant, right? You don't want to wait till you're an old fart like me, right? And Brent's not that old. He looks younger than me. But you don't want to wait till you're too old, right? So you want to be able to capitalize on the moment. So realistically, because I do have a lot of young listeners that listen to the show, this is definitely something you want to start researching and looking into and checking out Brent and the Money Multiplier and seeing what they do. That's all fantastic stuff. So Brent, I was going to ask you, like, how long has this been around? Because I know R. Nelson Nash did not start this concept. He just wrote a really good book about it as he did his own research. But yeah, so it's been around for a super long time. I didn't realize it was over 250 years old. I know the Rockefellers were like one of the first people or groups to start it, first families to really start doing this. But I didn't realize like the reach going back to the beginning of this nation pretty much. So that's pretty amazing. So I wanted to ask you, Brent, because you had mentioned that you now also invest in real estate and you have multiple properties. How has this method helped you? I know you get your first lien position on properties, but how has this method helped you with accelerating how quickly you've been able to build your portfolio, if that makes sense?
Yeah, just absolutely huge because I'm now recapturing and recycling all of the money so all that money is now staying in my family. There's no money being leaked out. I'm recapturing and recycling the money. And when I say recapturing and recycling the money, I am now turning every liability into an asset, every depreciating asset into an appreciating asset. I'm going to give you an example. And I have a full 90+ minute presentation on how this works on my website. It's called themoneymultiplier.com. I also wrote a book called Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. And I wrote that book with a colleague of mine, and his name is Chris Naugle. Now, Chris Naugle started as a client of mine, and now he's a colleague. And Chris and I wrote this book together. And a lot of you guys may have heard of Chris Naugle. He's very active in the real estate world. He lives up in New York, like up in the Buffalo, New York area. He's had a couple shows on TV. You're close to Canada, right? He has a couple shows on TV, one on House Hunters and then he had another show on HGTV called Risky Builders. And I would definitely suggest that you follow Chris Naugle on anything that he does. It's Naugle, Naugle. So just go to chrisnaugle.com and follow everything that he's doing. Now, also, I want to make clear that everything that we do at the Money Multiplier is with a whole life policy in a mutual company that pays dividends, okay? The reason that we don't use IULs, I won't go into that right now, but in an IUL, the thing that can happen in an IUL policy is you can lose every dollar that you put into an IUL policy. Don't take my word for it. Go out there and look at your IUL contract, and you will see on the contract, when you look at the left-hand side of it, you will see that when you reach a certain age, the cash value, the loan availability, and the death benefit can go all the way to zero because IUL, I stands for indexed. It all is based on what the market does. If the market is doing good, then the IUL would normally perform good. But when the market turns, which it has, and it will, and it's gone through the history, that's when you run into problems with an IUL policy. Now, I have lots of comparisons out there. All you got to do is go to our website, or even if you want to send me an email, Brent@themoneymultiplier.com. I will show you lots of comparisons, lots of videos on the difference between whole life and an IUL. Now, look, I could make a lot of money on an IUL policy if I'm the one selling it to you. And that's what we do. I am a life insurance agent in every state of the country. Every state of the country. I have over 13,000 clients, but everything we do is geared towards whole life. We teach exactly the Nelson Nash concept, and we're using that money, Mike, immediately. Now, I know you said, which is great information for your listeners, hey, the younger you are, get this thing started, and it takes a while to build up. Yes, but no. You can start using the money immediately. And my definition of immediately is within 30 days. So when you put money into that policy, within 30 days, you can start using that money. Now, when you go and watch my whole recorded presentation on our website, themoneymultiplier.com, you will see I go over the examples of how you're going to start using that money immediately. And what we're doing is recapturing and recycling the money. Now, earlier, Mike, you said, hey, I didn't even realize this thing was around for over 200 and 250 years. Actually, there's a guy out there. His name is Robert Kiyosaki. And a lot of people in the real estate world have heard of Robert Kiyosaki. Well, yes. And the thing about Robert, he's pretty well known or famous for this book that he wrote, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But he also wrote another book called Second Chance. And in that book, Second Chance, this method is exactly what Robert Kiyosaki talks about. In that book, Second Chance, the only problem with Robert talking about the method is he makes it too difficult and complicated to understand. So when people read it, they just read right through it and they don't understand what's going on. Now, there's another guy you may have heard of. His name is Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins wrote a book called Money Master the Game. And in that book, Money Master the Game, that Tony Robbins wrote, the concept that I teach is what Tony Robbins talks about in chapter 5.4 of that book, Money Master the Game. But again, the problem is he makes it too difficult to understand. And when people read it, they don't even understand just exactly what's going on. So in this type of policy, it is a specifically designed, a specially engineered whole life insurance policy designed for high immediate cash value. And when I say immediate, within 30 days. So you put money into this policy, and within 30 days, you start using the money. Now, keep in mind, Mike, anytime you use the money out of the policy, you're not taking your money out of the policy. No. You're simply putting your policy up for collateral, and you're taking a loan from the general fund of the insurance company, which is a great thing because now what's happening? All that money that you have in the policy is continuing to grow, guaranteed in that tax-free growth environment, and the government is completely out of your hair. So you're using the money, and it's still, and all of it is still growing, even though you're using the money. Let me give another plug out there for a client of mine. His name is Devin Burr. He lives in Phoenix, Arizona. For all of you guys that are big social media gurus, TikTok, Instagram, all of that. So Devin has over 1 million followers. Devin is a real estate investor in Phoenix, Arizona. And okay, so the way to follow Devin is go to Instagram, TikTok, and go to Mr. Burr. It's MR_Burr, BRRRR, B and 4 R's. Now, the way you spell his last name is BURR, but again, his TikTok and Instagram and social media is Mr_Burr. Start watching some of Devin's videos. Devin shows you how he uses his policies, his cash value policies, to fund all of his real estate investments. And he's using that money over and over and over and over again because he's recycling and recapturing those dollars. So let me give you an example. I have a $20 bill in my hand, okay? Let's say the thing that both of us were going to do, Mike, both you and I are going to go out and buy a car. Now, the way we would normally buy a car is one of 3 ways. We would either pay cash for the car, bank finance the car, or take it, or the thing we would do is have the car as a lease. Either way, our money, okay, I'm going to make believe this is a $20,000 bill and we're going to buy a $20,000 car. No matter how we buy the car, what we have to do is we have to take the money, give it to the car dealer, gives us the car. He's got the money. Everybody is happy, goes home. They're satisfied with the transaction. But how about if there's a way, if we could add one step in our financial life, we can now recycle and recapture and get all of that money back for all the cars we're going to buy, drive, and own. So that's what we're doing. Now, every time I buy a car, I take the money, I give it to the car dealer. In exchange, I get the car. He gets the money, I get the car. But because I have implemented this concept, this process, this system, I'm now getting that money back, and that money never leaves my family. So essentially, I'm getting every dollar back for every car I'm going to buy, drive, and own. And when you go watch my full 90-minute presentation, I show you exactly step by step how that is done. And if you can get all the money back for all the cars you're going to buy, drive, and own, guess what else you can get all the money back for? Anything. Look, remember down here? Unlock the infinite banking concept. It is infinite. Everything that you buy, anything, any product or service that you buy, any investment that you make, any bill that you pay, you're now able to recycle and recapture that money, and that money stays in the family. Don't take my word for it. Go Google my name. Go Google the Money Multiplier. I've got 13,000 clients in every state of the country, and you will see the plan designs, the case studies, the success stories, the testimonials. It is a game changer when it comes to your financial life.
Absolutely. So Brent, that really is one of the keys to, so one of the big terms you hear every day now is generational wealth, right? I'm building generational wealth for my family. Everybody talks about generational wealth. This is one of those ways that you truly are keeping that money in your family, right? You are, and again, this is how the Rockefellers, the Waltons, Walt Disney, like how they all kept all this money. Again, I hate using this word, but it's the right way. They keep their money incestuous, right? It stays within the family. It's all there and constantly being recycled, as you said, right? So that example you gave about going to buy the car, for those that are listening right now, what he was talking about is like, yeah, you're still handing over that $20,000 to the dealer. But here's the thing. You borrowed that $20,000 from yourself, and now you're paying that $20,000 back to yourself as you're paying that loan back off. So the money never really left you. So that's the thing that's awesome about it. So as you're paying back that loan, you're paying back yourself. You borrowed money from yourself to buy something that you wanted, and then you paid yourself back. So you essentially, like you said, you're recycling your money, which is just a phenomenal way to just keep it within the family. And again, at the same time, Brent had mentioned, it is constantly growing at the same time. So just because you borrowed that money doesn't mean that particular amount has been withdrawn, right? So I have a thrift savings plan from when I was in the military, right? And I had borrowed from that to buy a duplex, right? And when I borrowed that money, the amount that I borrowed stopped growing because I actually pulled that money out of the account and had to pay it back. But with this strategy, you would borrow that money from yourself, not pull it out, right? And that what is still in that account will continue to grow. So that's one of the big differences between something like this and like borrowing from your 401k. So big difference right there. But Brent, yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. I wanted to ask you one more thing before we transition into the final round, where I'm going to ask you the same 4 questions I ask everybody that comes on the show. But I wanted to ask you, so throughout the time that you have been doing this strategy, right, and the multitudes of people that you have helped, what is one of the biggest success stories that you've seen from one of your clients?
Yeah, well, I can tell you my own success story. I paid off $984,711 of debt in 39 months. And it's, again, everybody is at a different space, right? There's some people that have debt to pay off. There's some people that have no debt to pay off. They're just real estate investors, for example. They want to buy more and more properties. And the thing they need to buy more properties is what? They need more capital, or they need other people's money. But when you're using this process, that money is never leaving the family. It's staying in the family. So look, I want you to think of this, Mike. So the average American spends 34.5 cents of every dollar goes out to interest to other people. That's what they spend in interest that goes out to other people. Or even if it's not interest, if it's just principal or whatnot, whenever you buy something, you take that money and you buy your products or services. That money leaves your family. It is gone forever. By adding this one step, by paying yourself first. Now, a lot of people have heard the term pay yourself first, but they never do it, right? They never pay themselves first. Look, I don't even know your audience, and I know what they do with their money. The thing they do is they get money in. All right, so they get money in, active income, passive income, investment income. It could be a check in the mail from grandma for your birthday. They take that money, they put it into somebody else's bank, the conventional bank of wherever you have your bank, the Bank of Florida, the Bank of Hawaii, the Bank of Texas, wherever. And now guess what they do with the money? They take the money out, they go buy the crap that they want, they pay the bills that they want to pay, and they hope there's money left over for them at the end. You can't do that anymore. You have to pay yourself first. And the way you pay yourself first is by putting money in the policy first, and then from the policy, taking the loan from the general fund of the insurance company. Now, I show you in my 90-minute presentation how all this works and how your money is growing, and you're using the general funds money of the insurance company, and you're continuing to build and keep and create wealth, right? So now what you're going to do is you're going to go buy the stuff that you want to buy, pay off your debts, expenses, make your real estate investments after the money runs through the policy. So it's going to get in the policy. And when you do that, it's going to recycle. And the thing you're going to do is recapture and recycle all of that money that was leaving your family. Just think of how much more money you would have if you just were able to keep some of the money that was leaving your family. Just think about it if you could get that money back and it stays in your family. Now, to answer your question and go into success stories, there's a ton of them. Go Google my name or the Money Multiplier. Look at the testimonials and success stories. But I'm talking about taking people. Probably one of my most favorite stories is there was a couple in Ottawa, Kansas. Now, Ottawa, Kansas is a little suburb about 40 minutes south of Kansas City. And it was a husband and wife, and they had 2 teenage kids. And they both worked at the Walmart distribution center, not the Walmart store, but the big distribution center where they get all the products in for Walmart, and they load the trucks, and then all that stuff gets shipped out to different Walmart stores. It was a husband and wife working at the Walmart distribution center. They were able, okay, so like back when they first came to us, and again, at the time, I was working in another insurance agency with another colleague of mine. So the thing that happened is they had like a certain income. Let's just say they were making 40 grand a year each, right? $80,000. They had their house with a house mortgage. They had 2 cars with car mortgages. At the time, they had high school kids who were about to go into college. They're like, oh my gosh, how do I pay for the kids' college? Then the kids, I think the one kid was getting pretty serious with his girlfriend, and they were thinking about getting married and stuff like that. So that's another expense, your marriage, your honeymoon. Now that kid needs a house, and they all need cars and all of that. And the thing is, it just seemed like they were just like, okay, on this nonstop like hamster wheel where they were working. The harder you work, the harder you work, the harder you work, but they were never getting ahead. When they put this concept into place, they were able to pay off that house. They were able to pay off those cars. They were able to fund college, right? They were able to pay off credit card debt. And now that money was staying in their family, and it just totally changed their outlook on financial life. They were no longer now working just to survive. Because if you think about it, Mike, most people are a couple or a few weeks away from being homeless. And the thing I mean by that is because they live paycheck to paycheck. If they miss 2 or 3 paychecks, they still have all this crap that they got to pay for. Now they're going to come and get your crap, and how do you catch up? So it's a total mind shift. Okay, the thing you're doing is changing your paradigm of how you look about money. I used to be a Dave Ramsey and a Susie Orman follower. I would record Susie Orman on Saturday night so I didn't miss it. And then after I learned about this concept and discovered what in the hell was going on, I learned that they were lying to me. They were telling me lies. And that's exactly what they were doing. Now, I'm not knocking Dave Ramsey, okay? So Dave Ramsey, okay, so here's what Dave Ramsey does. He teaches you how to live below your means. That's what he wants you to do, is live below your means. Have you ever Googled Dave Ramsey's house, the one he has up there in Tennessee, up in the Smoky Mountains? Now, I get it. He's probably living below his means. I mean, his means are way, way up there, right? So I'm not saying you shouldn't live below your means, but what Dave Ramsey is teaching you how to do is he teaches you how to get back to zero, get out of debt, climb climb out of the hole, get back to zero. But then what in the hell do you do when you're at zero? What's the next step? Is
Yep.
it buy term and invest the rest? That's a bunch of bull crap, because the people that are doing that, it's not working for them. And even if you were going to buy term and invest the rest, nobody else is investing. It's a good soundbite, but nobody actually does it. This is an outside of the box concept that's going to make you think a little bit about what is actually going on. And it's going to teach you the truth about money and how money works and what the wealthy have been doing for well over 200 years.
So you're ruffling some feathers over here, Brent. You're lucky my co-host isn't here. She's a big Dave Ramsey fan, but it's funny. I look at Dave Ramsey as a good starting point for a lot of people that are trying to learn financial literacy, right? It's a good starting point to start figuring things out. His baby steps, like 1 through 3, are probably okay. And then after that, like, you got to go do something else. I love this strategy. I love infinite banking. It's a great way to just keep things moving, right? And take control. And for me, I'm a big control freak. I like to be in control. I'd like to have control of my money. So I think that's super important. Now, so there's a lot of stuff we touched on here, but again, at the same time, I feel like you got a really good message across, right, Brent? And now I want to ask you some questions that I ask the same for everybody that comes on the show. It's called the final round. I'm going to ask you the same 4 questions I ask everybody that comes on here. And it gives us a little bit more of an insight as to how you are under a little bit of pressure, or just with decisions and choices that you've made in your own personal life, right? So if you're ready to go, we'll get that part started.
I'm ready to go, man. Let's do it.
All right, Brent. So the first question of the final round is, what's the biggest mistake that you've ever made in your finances or business life?
Yeah, the biggest mistake is I sat on the sidelines and I was too scared to go for it. And yeah, I didn't take action quick enough. And even now, today, there's some things, like especially in the last few years in the real estate world, there was action I was about to take and I didn't take it. And now I kick myself in the rear end that I didn't do it, knowing what I know now. So,
Yeah.
well, yeah. So just take action.
I love that word. I love the word action. It's part of my 4 pillars of being good at anything. It's actually the very last pillar, because the others don't matter if you don't do that one. If you don't take action, all the other stuff doesn't matter. Absolutely love that. So this next question, Brent, feeds off of that first one. And that is, what is something that you've learned that you wish you knew when you first started out?
Actually, this concept, obviously, so I think I'm pretty right as far as on top of that. So anyway, the older that I get is okay, the more I realize I don't know everything. And God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth. So the thing I should be doing is I should listen twice as much as I talk. I'm still learning that skill. I haven't mastered it yet.
I think a
But
lot of us have trouble with that.
but I would say that so the 3 things that I learned later in life is, I would say 3 things are mindset, systems, and mentors. First of all, I have to have the proper mindset, because our mind is a powerful thing. It can get distorted. And let me just be totally transparent with you and the audience. My mindset can get distorted. I have a mental health coach that I would consider a mental health coach. And I'm going to give a plug out. There's a group out there. It's called Man on Fire. And again, it's for men. It's a men's group. It's called Man on Fire. And the guy that runs the group is Dr. David Mailer. And David Mailer is like my mindset coach, because I can still get my mind into a rut about certain things, not about money anymore. I don't get my mindset in a rut about money. I understand and own the concept about money, but there's a lot of other things in life. So I need a coach, just like Tiger Woods needs a coach to hit a golf ball, right? So David is my coach, but I have to have the right mindset, and David helps me with that mindset. So if I'm getting a little distorted, I get back on track. The next thing is systems. You have to have a system or a process. If you don't, you have total chaos. Now, it's not always bad to have chaos, but if you're going to have chaos, you better learn how to organize the chaos, right? So I like to say systems, mindset, systems. And then the third thing is mentors. Have a mentor or a group of mentors. Have somebody that you want to coach you in whatever it is that you want to be coached in, right? Like I talked about David, is I look at him as my mindset health coach. If I want to learn how to play golf really good, I'm going to go take golf lessons. I'm not going to go out there and just whack the ball. It's like on the course. I had to have a coach when I had to learn how to fly. I had to have a mentor, a flying mentor. So no matter what category it is in your life, even to be a better speaker, you have to have a speaking coach. If you want to be better at finances, that's what I call myself, is the financial coach. Look, at the back of my phone, it's all messed up. All right. So can you see? It says the Money Multiplier. I have my QR code back here, and look what it says. Brent Kessler, the money coach. So whenever you want to learn about money and wealth building, I am the money coach, right? So you have to have mindset, systems, and mentors. So I mentor others on building, keeping, and creating wealth, but I have my own mentors that I look to for guidance and feedback and coaching to keep all the other areas in my life going.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
I hope I answered the question. As a matter of fact, Mike, I forgot what the hell the question was.
You did. The thing that you learned, those are pretty powerful, those three things, having the mindset, systems, and mentors. I'm a firm believer in mentors and coaches. I have them myself. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't have great mentors around me, 100%. So choose your mentors wisely. All right, Brent. So the next question of the final round is, do you have any tips or tricks that you would recommend to someone that is just getting started out today?
Yeah, three things. Pay attention, get excited, and never quit. So number one, pay attention to what's coming into you, okay? And so like if it's something that appeals to you, so get excited about it. Get excited and get passionate about it. Because again, if you're going to do it, go all in. Don't do it half-ass, and never quit. It is so easy to quit when the tough gets hard, or when things get tough, it gets so it gets difficult, but don't quit. Don't let all that crap that comes into your life kind of distort your view. And anyway, Mike, okay, the thing I want to say, and this is going to strike a nerve with a lot of your listeners. A lot of your listeners are not going to like me when I say this. A lot of
Brent, I
times,
want them to like you.
a lot of times, our family will drag our ass down. We have
Sure.
family members. We have family members that don't want you to be too successful. They don't want you to necessarily be better because they're afraid you're going to get one step above them. So sometimes what you have to do is you have to fire people that are around you, that are in your life, your friends, your
Yep.
colleagues, your coworkers. And a lot of times those are family members in your life that you have to fire. I'm not saying you
Yeah.
can't go and celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas with them, but a lot of the information you're feeding, a lot of that noise that they're putting in your mind, it will distort it, and you got to sometimes fire those people that are in your life.
Yeah, no, that's unfortunate, but it's an unfortunate reality, right?
It is.
I've experienced it myself, and I know many other people that are successful in real estate that have had similar things with family or close friends or colleagues that they just had to let go, right? Because sometimes you might think you have somebody on your side, but they're in the background, they don't have your best interest in mind. It is important to weed them out.
And then too, Mike, I tell my kids this all the time. I say, kids, so the decisions that you make today are going to affect you 5, 10, 20 years down the road. Whatever
Absolutely.
decisions you're making today, it's not going to necessarily affect you today, good or bad. It's going to affect you 5, 10, or 20 years down the road. So always act as if somebody was watching you 24/7. And so here's
Love
what
it.
I tell my two younger kids. I say, look, kids, I want you to act as if you knew that grandma was watching you 24 hours a day. Would grandma be proud of the decisions that you're making?
Yep. No, that's actually one of the things after I got commissioned. So I went from enlisted to officer, right? And one of the things that they told me at my officer school was you're always on parade, right? And what does that mean? That means there's always someone watching. Your juniors are watching you to follow your lead, follow your example, or to point out the mistakes that you make. It's important to think like that, to believe that you are always being watched, because you really are. You really are. People do keep a perception of what you're doing, and You want them to either have a good perception or bad perception. It depends on how you want things to look for certain individuals, but you have to understand that you are always being watched. So I feel like if you live your life that way, you'll make better choices, right? Okay. So Brent, the final question of the final round, and I think I have an idea of what this book might be. So actually, instead of a book, because you've already mentioned a couple books, do you have a favorite business, investing, or real estate related podcast? And I will say besides your daughters, right? Because we'll get to that in a second too. But do you have any others that come to mind?
Yeah, I like to read anything by the late Zig Ziglar, and I'm
Mm,
a big fan of Zig Ziglar. Back when I was a kid, fourth or fifth grade in school, it was elementary school. I remember there was this class, and it was called ICAN. And the author of the book with that was Zig Ziglar. It was all about Zig Ziglar's teachings. And I followed him basically ever since that fourth or fifth grade class. And I'm a big believer of what the late Zig Ziglar said: help enough other people get what they want, and you end up getting what you want, right? So it's about
sure.
serving others. Just like you, Mike, you have served our country. You've just helped make this place a better world by your service in the U.S. Navy. And I am, again, the thing is, I'm just a big believer that we have to serve other people. It's not about me. It's not about the stuff that I want. I'm going to serve you, help you get what you want, and in turn, I'll end up getting what I want. The only other thing I would say is, in the real estate world, I would suggest, if you're not following Pace Morby, Pace Morby is a great guy. Pace Morby is a client
Yeah.
of mine. He understands this infinite banking concept as well. But if a person is in the real estate world, or they're getting in the real estate world, or they want to advance their knowledge, go out and follow Pace Morby and watch what Pace Morby is doing. He
Yeah.
puts a ton of content out there. And again, I work with hundreds and hundreds of his clients in his sub two community, his gator community, hundreds of people, and they love him. They love the stuff they learn from him. They apply it in their everyday life, and it works. So that would be a great today resource, is Pace Morby.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for that. That is it for the final round, Brent. I would be remiss though if I didn't ask you this last question that I have for you. And this is the most important question I'm going to ask you throughout this entire interview, because people are listening to this episode right now and they're saying, wow, I really like this infinite banking concept. I really like this money multiplier. I need to learn more about this method. I need to learn more about Brent or anything of that sort. So do you have a website? You've already mentioned it. So I'll make sure I have the website in the show notes, but do you have any social media profiles or anything like that that people can follow and check you out?
Yeah. Okay. So our website is themoneymultiplier.com. It's going to be THE, the word money multiplier.com. And again, there's tons of contents on there. And I'll also offer all of your listeners this book that I wrote, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. I will send you the ebook. All you have to do is send me an email, Brent, BRENT, at themoneymultiplier.com, and I will send that to you. My daughter also travels around the country, teaches on stage. We're all around the country teaching. We travel so much that we have our own airplane and our own pilot that gets us all around the country. That's how much we travel and teach at live events. But okay, my daughter, Hannah, her name is Hannah Kessler, Hannah, spelt the same way forward as backwards. But go and follow her podcast, the Money Multiplier Podcast, wherever you get your
Yep.
podcast from. She's got over 113 episodes. She records one every single week. I've already told you about chrisnoggle.com. I've told you about Devin Burr. So those are all good resources to learn more about this concept. If this is something that you want to learn about and see how it would work for you in your own life, all you got to do is just send me an email, and we'll have a money mentor do a strategy call with you to get your questions answered so you can see how this will work in your financial life. Even if you do work with us in this concept, and not that you have to, there's others you can go work with. There's nobody that does it better than what we do. And since you heard it on this podcast, hopefully you'll do it with us anyway. But even if you don't, the thing is, if you do work with us, you never pay us a dime for our services. We never collect any money ever from you. You will never pay me a dime or my company, the Money Multiplier, a dime. The way that I get paid one way only. I get paid the same way your car insurance guy or gal gets paid. So, for example, let's say you're going to go buy car insurance from John Smith, the Allstate man. The check that you write is not to John Smith. You write it to Allstate, and then
Right.
Allstate pays John Smith a commission. So I get paid a commission on the policy that you buy. No matter who you buy the policy from, somebody gets paid a commission. So that's what we do.
Absolutely. All right, Brent. So this was fantastic. I'm going to make sure I have all those links in the show notes for all the resources that you gave, as well as your daughter's podcast, everything. I'm excited to go listen to that myself. And yeah, I'm going to make sure that it's there for everybody. So look, for my listeners, if you are listening right now, you know the drill. Don't click it or copy and paste it. If you're driving right now, wait till you get to a safe place to pull over or do it later. But Brent, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day today to join me and our listeners and share your story, share the Money Multiplier method and how useful it can be to so many other people. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Mike, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. And I'm happy to serve any of your community. And I'm grateful for the opportunity. And again, Mike, thank you for your service to our country. Most important of all, you're the man. You're the man that's serving. So we appreciate that.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. And also, I also want to thank all my listeners for tuning in today. Thank you so much for joining me and our special guest, Brent Kessler, on the Average Joe Finances podcast. Go leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you liked about today's specific episode with Brent. Aloha from Hawaii and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.